was on my way to my daughter's house for dinner, looking forward to a warm family evening, when my lawyer sent me a message. Call me urgently. My heart skipped a beat. I dialed the number, and what he told me about my daughter left me stunned. You won't believe what she was planning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what time it is where you are right now. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with Michael's name. Call me immediately. Emergency regarding Nina. The pen slipped from my fingers. 30 years of building Hansen Tech, and never once had Michael Reed written the word emergency about family. I called. Before the screen went dark, his voice was firm, professional steel. I need to warn you. Nina has filed a lawsuit. She wants you declared incompetent to run Hansen Tech. The words hit like ice water. What are you saying? That's impossible. She's my daughter, he explained quickly. She's aligned with a group of shareholders. They claim you've lost your edge because of emotional instability. I dropped into my chair. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle's skyline blurred, the same view I'd watched for decades while building this company for her. How long do we have? Hearing in 1 week. We must act fast. My throat tightened. 1 week, Michael continued. She's been preparing this for months. The documentation is extensive financial records that frame your decisions as reckless. Testimonies from board meetings. I paced between my desk and the window. Rain streaked the glass like tears I couldn't shed. What testimonies? Claims of emotional outbursts. Questionable strategies. They're painting you as a man losing control. That's absurd. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had I been too passionate in meetings? Too stubborn? Defending old strategies? I know it's absurd, Michael replied, but they have paperwork, a lot of it. The office suddenly felt smaller. Awards on the walls, photos of groundbreaking ceremonies, all meaningless if my own daughter could. Take it away. Who else knows? The filing is sealed, but the shareholders she recruited: James Corbin, Patricia Wheeler, 3 others they're meeting tomorrow. I gripped the phone tighter. She had promised them higher dividends under her leadership. Her leadership. The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss I'd ever faced. Nina, my brilliant, ambitious daughter. The one I had been grooming to take over Somnene. But not like this. Never like this. What do you need from me? Everything: financial records, medical documentation, proof of your competence, character witnesses. We're building your defense from scratch in 7 days. I closed my eyes. Just 48 hours ago, I had been planning to announce her promotion to CEO within the year. Now, she was trying to destroy me. Wei, are you there? I'm here, I answered, my voice unfamiliar even to me. Schedule whatever meetings you need. I'll clear my calendar. Good. And Wei, don't confront her yet. We need to understand their strategy first. After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness. Seattle's lights twinkled below, but the warmth had left the room. Left my life. I gathered my things: mechanically coat, briefcase, keys. The same routine I had followed for 30 years, but everything had changed in a single phone call. The elevator descended in silence. 50 floors down, my legs felt weak. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands on the wheel, trying to make sense of it. Nina was expecting me for dinner tonight. Our weekly tradition. Should I go? Pretend nothing had happened? Could I sit across from her, making small talk while she planned my downfall? And yet, maybe I needed to see her face, to study her, to understand who my daughter had become. I started the engine and pulled into Seattle's evening traffic, heading toward Bellevue toward answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Nina's front door opened before I could knock. She stood there in a cream sweater, smile perfectly measured. Dad, right on time. Her hug felt rehearsed. Come in, it's freezing. I searched her face for cracks in the mask. There were none. Mia's been asking about Grandpa all day, she said, leading me inside. She drew you another picture? The house smelled like roasted chicken and secrets. In the kitchen, Aaron was setting the table. He looked up with nervous energy. "Way, good to see you." His handshake lingered just a little too long. "Can I get you a drink? Wine? Something stronger?" "Wine's fine." I watched Nina move around the kitchen, efficient, controlled the same way she handled board meetings. Mia bounded in, paint-stained overalls, and a grin. "Grandpa." I lifted her easily, grateful for something real in this house of pretense. "What's this I hear about a picture?" "It's us at the office. See? That's you at your big desk. And that's me, in the spinning chair." She thrust a crayon drawing at me. Stick figures colored in Hanson Tech's logo shades. Innocent. Trusting. Everything her mother wasn't. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I kissed her forehead, catching Nina watching us. Something flickered across her expression, guilt calculation. "Mia, wash your hands for dinner," Aaron said, his voice too bright. Nina moved between stove and counter with her usual precision. "Dad, you look tired. Maybe you should rest more." The loaded question. I met her eyes. "Work keeps me sharp. By the way, how are things in the finance department?" She froze, wooden spoon halfway to her mouth. "Let's not talk about work at dinner." "Since when?" I kept my tone light. "You usually love quarterly projections." "Not tonight. Family time is sacred. Sacred. Like loyalty used to be." Aaron cleared his throat. "Mia drew that picture during art time today. She's been talking about visiting the office again." "Maybe next week," I said, wondering if I'd still have an office by then. Mia climbed into her booster seat. "Grandpa, can you tell the story about the first computer?" "Which story, sweetheart?" "When you built the company in the garage." I glanced at Nina. She was slicing chicken with surgical precision. "That was before your mommy was born. We had nothing but ideas and determination. And Grandma Ilna helped," Mia added. The knife paused. Nina's shoulders tensed. "Yes," I said softly. "Grandma Ilna helped with everything." Silence stretched. Aaron filled it with background music, classical safe. Dinner went on with artificial normalcy. Mia chattered about preschool. Aaron discussed his latest architectural project. Nina asked polite questions about my health, my sleep, my diet. Every word felt like reconnaissance. "The chicken is excellent," I said. "Mom's recipe," Nina replied, voice edged. She always said cooking was about love, not perfection. Another loaded statement. Ilna used to say that, while trying to pull me away from the office. She had been wise about many things. Yes, she was. Nina's fork clicked against her plate. She understood priorities. The accusation lingered. Mia looked between us, sensing the tension. "Grandpa, why are you sad?" Out of the mouths of children. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how much I love our family dinners." Nina's eyes met mine across the table. For a heartbeat, I saw the little girl who once waited at the window for me to come home. But the moment vanished. "More wine?" Aaron asked, already reaching for the bottle. The evening crawled forward. Dessert. Coffee. Mia showing me her newest drawings. Normal rituals, masking extraordinary betrayal. At 8:25, I stood to leave. "Thank you for dinner. As always, it was perfect." Nina walked me to the door. "Dad, are you sure you're okay? You seem different tonight." I studied her face. The concern looked real. Maybe it was. Maybe she had convinced herself this was for my own good. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just reflecting on how much Hanson means to me. To our family." Something shifted in her expression. The guard came back up. "Drive safely. The roads are slick tonight." I kissed her cheek. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. "Good night, Nina. Good night, Dad." The door closed softly behind me. I stood on the front steps as rain began to fall. Through the window, I saw her clearing dishes, efficient, methodical, already planning my downfall. Later, I parked overlooking Lake Union, city lights flickering across the black water. My hands shook as I dialed Michael again. "Way, how did dinner go?" "Like a performance," I said. "She knows how to act concerned," while stabbing me in the back. Rain drummed on the windshield. "Tell me everything." "She's been preparing for 6 months," Michael said. "She has records of your emotional outbursts at meetings." "What outbursts?" "I've always controlled myself. The Anderson acquisition meeting when you rejected their lowball offer. Apparently, you raised your voice." She documented it as irrational anger threatening company relationships. I remembered that meeting. I'd been passionate, not angry. There was a difference. What else? Financial decisions. She's labeling them as sentiment over strategy, the charity partnership with Ilna's Foundation, the employee retention program, things that cost money, but weren't strictly profitable. My throat tightened. Those were good decisions. "No," Michael said, "but she's framing them as emotional choices instead of business logic." I started the engine, needing to move. "What's her timeline?" "Hearing next Friday. If she wins, she gets temporary control, while you undergo psychological evaluation. And if I refuse, the shareholders can vote you out anyway. She has enough backing." I drove through the empty Seattle streets, processing the scope of her betrayal, not just an attack on me, but the careful dismantling of everything I had built. At home, I climbed to my study. 30 years of memories lined the walls, awards, photos, the debris of a successful life. I opened my safe and pulled out Ilna's letters, the ones she had written in her final months, when she knew she was dying. She had tried to warn me about priorities. "We need your attention more than the company does. She thinks you don't love her." I had dismissed Ilna's concerns then. Nina was successful, independent, thriving. How could she doubt my love? But doubt had apparently festered into something darker. I found the folder marked Nina Personal. School records, report cards, photos, from company events where she had stood beside me, proud and eager. When had that pride soured into resentment? My computer chimed with an encrypted email from Michael. Legal documents. Nina's formal complaint. Dense with accusations and medical recommendations. Subject displays increasing emotional volatility and attachment to outdated business practices. His refusal to embrace modern strategies suggests diminished cognitive flexibility, consistent with early-stage dementia or depression following spousal loss. Depression following spousal loss. They were using Ilna's death against me. My grief twisted into evidence of incompetence. I poured 3 fingers of scotch and kept reading. Character witnesses prepared to testify about my declining judgment. Financial analysts ready to argue my choices were emotionally driven. Medical experts poised to recommend compassionate intervention, a full-scale character assassination, wrapped in concern for my well-being, brilliant and devastating. At 1:15 a.m., I closed the laptop and sat in darkness. Rain tapped against the windows. The house felt enormous, empty. Ilna's photograph stared back from my desk. She had known this day might come, had tried to prevent it. She doesn't understand why you love the company more than her. But I hadn't loved the company more. I had built it for her, for our family's future. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrifice had been for them. Somehow, I had failed to show Nina that my ambition was love expressed in the only language I knew. Now she was speaking a different language, corporate warfare, and she had mastered it too well. I opened my phone and started typing notes. Names of allies, potential strategies, ways to prove my competence while dismantling her case. If Nina wanted a war, she would get one. But she had underestimated her opponent. I hadn't built Hansen by surrendering to stronger forces. I had built it by outthinking them. Dawn was still hours away, but something stirred in me, not just anger or hurt, but strategy, purpose. My daughter had declared war on everything I had built, on everything I was. It was time to remind her who taught her how to fight. The elevator climbed toward Steve's floor with deliberate precision. I shifted the briefcase, loaded with 2 weeks of evidence. Time to stop playing defense. Steve Wilson's corner office occupied the same building as mine, 3 floors down. Same view of Lake Union, but a completely different perspective on everything else. His assistant waved me through. He's expecting you, Mr. Hansen. Steve looked up from quarterly projections, reading glasses perched on his nose. 60 years of friendship reflected in those familiar blue eyes. Perfect timing. I was just reviewing that we need to talk. I set the briefcase on his conference table with a deliberate thud. Closed the door. Something in my tone made him move quickly. The door clicked shut. What's wrong? Nina's trying to have me declared incompetent. Steve's face cycled through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, concern. That's impossible. I opened the briefcase. Legal documents fanned across the polished table, like battle plans. She filed suit 2 weeks ago, temporary. Control while I undergo a psychological evaluation. Steve sank into his chair. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I needed to understand the scope first. I pulled out the shareholder analysis. Look at this. The document mapped our investors, like a military campaign. Green for loyal, red for convinced by Nina, yellow for undecided. Too much red. Corbin's already committed, I said. Patricia Wheeler too. 3 others. Steve studied the names. Why? She promised Corbin a 16% dividend increase. How? Staff cuts, automation, AI implementation. Cold dread settled in my chest. That would destroy the company culture we'd built over 30 years. But young shareholders only cared about numbers. Steve had been monitoring internal communications. Co-founder privileges included access to company emails. The intelligence he'd gathered painted a clear picture. Nina had been methodical. Each shareholder approached with tailored promises. Corbin got profit projections, Wheeler efficiency studies, others modernization speeches. She's selling them a fantasy, I said. A profitable fantasy. Steve pulled up email chains on his computer. Look at these revenue forecasts she's sharing. Aggressive, unrealistic, based on firing half our senior staff and automating customer service. This isn't innovation. It's corporate vandalism. Try explaining that to shareholders watching tech stocks soar. I spread financial reports across the table. Our actual performance over 3 years. Steady growth, consistent profits, satisfied employees. We've averaged 13% annual growth. Retention rate 95%. Customer satisfaction, industry leading. She promises 26% growth through strategic restructuring. The phrase made me sick. Strategic restructuring, corporate speak for destroying lives. What about Corbin? Is he lost completely? Steve leaned back. Maybe not. He respects long-term stability, but he's scared of missing the next big wave. Then we remind him what happens to companies that chase every trend. I pulled out a folder marked competition analysis. Companies that had followed Nina's preferred strategy. Most had imploded within 5 years. Remember, Techflow Industries. Steve nodded grimly. Automated everything. Stock tripled, then customer service collapsed. Exactly. Worth 20% of their peak now. We spent the next hour mapping strategy. Which shareholders could be saved. What evidence would convince them. How to present our case without seeming desperate. Rain lashed against the windows. February in Seattle. Perfect weather for corporate warfare. There's something else, Steve said quietly. Her legal representation, Laura Blake. Michael had briefed him. Aggressive courtroom theater. Then, we give her a better show. Steve's computer chimed. Calendar reminder. Board meeting next week. Routine quarterly review. She'll make her move there, I said. Unless we move first. I closed the briefcase but left the analysis documents spread across Steve's table, visual evidence of our campaign. Schedule a meeting with Corbin, I said. Private lunch, this week. What's your angle? Fear. Show him what happens to investors who bet against proven leadership. Steve was already scrolling through contacts. Thursday works. Morton's downtown. Neutral ground. The afternoon light faded. In 2 hours, I'd transformed from victim to general. Nina wanted a war. She'd get one. But she had underestimated her enemy. I hadn't built Hansen Tech by surrendering to stronger forces. I had built it by outthinking them. Michael's law office occupied the 20th floor of Columbia, center all mahogany and leather-bound authority. I arrived 10 minutes early, briefcase heavy, with Steve's intelligence. The receptionist offered coffee. I accepted. This would be a long morning. Mr. Hansen, Michael appeared in the doorway, ready for war. His conference room had been transformed into a command center. Nina's lawsuit documents covered one wall, my defense materials another, with empty space between 4 battle plans. Show me everything, I said. Michael lifted a thick folder, Nina's official filing. 47 pages of accusations, evidence, and medical recommendations. Surgical character assassination. Every passionate defense of company values, reframed as emotional instability. Every innovative risk repositioned as declining judgment. She claims you've lost touch with market reality, Michael said. Our profits grew 13% last year, I said. But she says that's due to her initiatives, not yours. Classic rewriting history, herself as the hero. Michael pulled out a separate stack. 6 months of documentation. Meetings where I allegedly showed emotional responses. Financial decisions dismissed as sentiment over strategy. Anderson acquisition. Charity partnership. Employee retention program. All profitable, long-term. All recast as emotional weakness. And her lawyer, Laura Blake. Michael's expression darkened. 38 wins and 42 competency hearings. Family business disputes. Making loving fathers look like declining patriarchs. I studied her photograph on Michael's computer. Sharp features. Predatory smile. A career built on destroying family legacies. Then we write a better script, I said. Michael pulled out. Our defense strategy. Character witnesses. Financial evidence. Medical evaluations, proof of my mental acuity. I've scheduled cognitive assessments with 3 independent doctors, blood work. Psychological evaluation. Complete physical. Overkill, but necessary. Blake will question your competence from every angle. The irony was bitter. At 62, I was sharper than most men half my age. Yet Nina had weaponized my grief over Elena's death. She was claiming delayed trauma response, emotional deterioration, following spousal loss, poor business judgment, increased volatility, using Elena's memory against Mitha. Calculation was breathtaking. What's our counter-strategy? I asked. Michael smiled for the first time that morning. Turn her greatest strength into a weakness. He spread out our evidence, neat promises to shareholders, unrealistic financial projections. Email chains documenting her 6-month deception campaign. We're filing a countersuit for what? Breach of fiduciary duty, conspiracy to defraud shareholders, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The last charge felt personal and it was. Will it work? It'll force her to defend her own actions instead of just attacking yours. Michael handed me the formal document, our counter-lawsuit. 23 pages of legal accusations, wrapped in precise corporate language. She'll be furious. Good. Angry people make mistakes. I signed the papers, with steady hands. No trembling now, just cold determination. When do we file? Today. Blake will have it by 5:05 p.m. Outside, the rain had turned to sleet. February in Seattle, always brutal. Perfect weather for legal warfare. One more thing, Michael said. The hearing date. March 16th. 3 weeks. I calculated rapidly. Enough time to prepare. Witnesses, coordinate strategy. If we moved fast. Michael's assistant knocked. Excuse me. Mr. Wilson is here for the 11:35 appointment. Steve entered, carrying his briefcase. Gentlemen, he said, ready to save our company? The three of us stood around the conference table. Evidence of family betrayal spread across polished mahogany. Nina wants to play legal games, I said. Now she gets to learn the rules. Outside, Seattle's skyline disappeared into gray mist. Inside, clarity crystallized. War had been declared. Positions chosen. Time to remind my daughter who taught her how to fight. I arrived 15 minutes early at the cafe, choosing a table by the window overlooking the market's controlled chaos. March in Seattle brought tentative spring warmth, vendors hawking, early flowers beneath cloudy skies. The coffee was bitter-appropriate. Nina appeared at 2:20 sharp, dressed in a charcoal business suit, armored for battle. She surveyed the cafe before approaching, calculating exits and witnesses. Dad. She sat across from me, maintaining distance. Thank you for coming. Your message said it was important. I studied her face. Tired, thinner than our last dinner. Carrying the weight of deception wasn't easy, even for her. How's Mia? Fine. Asking about you. The words carried accusation. The absent grandfather, the workaholic father, the man who chose business over family, and Aaron, busy with his projects. Her voice carefully neutral. We danced around the real conversation. Two combatants, testing defenses before engaging. Nina, why didn't you come to me directly? Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, guilt, still maintaining the lie. Impressive. Your concerns, your ideas for the company, your plans. When I tried, you were always busy with the company. There it was, the heart of everything. I built this for you. Her laugh was bitter. No, Dad, you built it for yourself. I was just an addition. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not true, is it? She leaned forward, anger breaking through careful control. Every family dinner interrupted by business. Calls every vacation cut short for meetings. Every school play you missed because of board presentations. Memories flooded back. Elena's disappointed face. Nina's resigned acceptance when I missed her college graduation. I had been providing for our family. You were feeding your ego. Silence stretched. Market vendors called prices outside. Normal life continued while we dissected 35 years of accumulated hurt. I want to modernize the company, but you block all my initiatives. I want to preserve what works. What works? Her voice rose slightly. Dad, we're falling behind. Tech companies are outpacing us. Our systems are outdated. Our methods are antiquated. Our methods built something lasting, something dying. She pulled out her phone, showing charts, graphs. Industry projections painted Hansen Tech as a dinosaur awaiting extinction. Automation could boost efficiency by 40%. AI could cut operational costs in half. Remote work could expand talent globally and eliminate half our workforce. Positions would be restructured, destroyed. You're talking about destroying lives, families, people who've given us decades of loyalty. Her jaw tightened. Business isn't about loyalty, Dad. It's about results. When did you become so cold? When I realized sentiment doesn't pay dividends. The words hung between us like a blade. This wasn't my daughter speaking. It was someone else who taught you that. You did. Every time you chose the company over us. Every time you proved success mattered more than people. Something broke inside me, not anger, not betrayal, but understanding. I never meant you. Never meant a lot of things, Dad. She gathered her phone and purse. But intentions don't change results. Nina, wait. She stood, looking down at me with Ilna's eyes in a stranger's face. I'm not the little girl waiting by the window anymore. I don't need your approval, your permission, or your company. But you want it. I want to save it from you. Heels clicked against hardwood floors as she walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she paused. Give me my love. Then she was gone, disappearing into the market crowd. I sat alone with cold coffee and colder understanding. My daughter wasn't just taking my company, she was taking revenge for 35 years of perceived neglect. And maybe she was right. The courthouse steps were slick with morning rain. I climbed slowly, briefcase in hand, watching Nina's legal team arrange themselves like pernators. Laura Blake stood at their center, sharp suit gleaming under gray. Seattle skies. Nina wore navy blue, conservative, competent, the beautiful daughter, protecting family assets from a declining patriarch. She didn't meet my eyes. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet energy. Shareholders filled the gallery. Business reporters and curious attorneys drawn to family drama played out in public. Michael touched my arm. Remember, stay calm, answer clearly. Judge Harrison called the court to order. 70 years old, silver hair, reputation for no-nonsense proceedings. Case number 2025-347, Hansen versus Hansen Tech Incorporated. Laura Blake rose, smooth and deadly. Your Honor, this case concerns an aging executive whose judgment has become compromised by grief and stubbornness. She moved toward the jury, gesturing elegantly. Performance masquerading as argument. Mr. Hansen has lost the ability to make rational decisions. His emotional attachment to outdated practices threatens shareholder value and employee security. The plaintiff, Ms. Nina Hansen Miller, seeks temporary guardianship to protect the company her father built from his own declining capabilities. Blake's voice was honey-coated. Poison, professional, persuasive, deadly. Then Nina took the witness stand. My brilliant, ambitious daughter, sworn under oath, to destroy me. Double quotes. Ms. Hansen Miller, please describe your father's recent behavior. My father is guided by emotions, not business logic, she said, steady. He makes decisions based on personal feelings rather than financial data. Can you provide examples? The charity partnership with Mother's Foundation, $200,000 annually. No measurable return. When I suggested redirecting funds, he became agitated. Agitated. Elena's memory reduced to a line item. What about strategic planning? He refuses automation or AI integration. Claims it would destroy company culture. Meanwhile, competitors gain market share. Blake nodded sympathetically. How has this affected company performance? We're stagnating. Growth has slowed. Efficiency lags behind industry standards. Half-truths. Our growth was steady, sustainable. Employees loyal because we treated them as people, not resources. In your professional opinion, what does the company need? Fresh leadership, modern strategies. Focus on profits rather than sentiment. The words hit like physical blows. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was someone else entirely. Michael's cross-examination was surgical. Ms. Hansen Miller, what was Hansen Tech's profit margin last quarter? 13%. Quarter before, 11.8%. So under your father's supposedly incompetent leadership, profits are increasing. Short-term fluctuations don't indicate long-term viability. Employee retention, 94% annually. Industry average, 67%. So your father maintains higher employee satisfaction while increasing profits. Retention can indicate resistance to change. Michael smiled coldly. Or exceptional leadership, Blake objected. Judge sustained, but the damage was done. James Corbin testified next. Straightforward, profit-focused. We need leadership. that prioritizes shareholder value. Ms. Hanson Miller understands modern business realities. When the morning session ended, I felt drained. Watching your daughter publicly dissect your competence required a strength I didn't know I had. Michael squeezed my shoulder. Phase 1 complete. Tomorrow, we fight back. Outside, Seattle's spring rain continued. Nina passed by, ignoring me, surrounded by her team. My little girl, who used to wait by the window, now couldn't wait for me to disappear. My assistant knocked softly. "Mr. Hanson, there's something you need to see." Sarah placed a folder on my desk. Employee Communications Confidential. Her face was grim. Nina had been holding private meetings, promising salary increases that would bankrupt us. I opened the folder. Meeting transcripts, email threads, 6 weeks of secret promises to key employees, 20% salary increases for engineers, 30% for department heads, stock options that didn't exist. Where did you get this? People talk, Mr. Hanson, especially when promises sound too good to be true. Steve Wilson arrived as I read the worst of it. Expression matched Sarah's. "We have a problem, Wei." He dropped his briefcase on the table. "Nina is approaching. New shareholders' pension funds, investment groups, painting you as an obstacle to explosive growth." Steve pulled out printed emails. "Nina promises employees 20% raises based on what? Magic. She tells them automation will cut costs so dramatically that massive raises are inevitable. The mathematics were impossible. Even full automation wouldn't cover her promises. She's committing fraud." "It gets better," Steve said, powering up his laptop. I'd been monitoring internal communications. Something caught my eye about her lawyer, Laura Blake. Her professional photograph appeared on my screen, attached to a news article. Years ago, Blake had been sanctioned by the Bar Association, suborning perjury in a similar case. Temporarily suspended from practice, my phone rang. Michael's name flashed. "Wei, I have evidence Blake violated ethical standards." "What kind of evidence?" She coached Nina's testimony. Told her exactly what to say, how to phrase accusations. Witness tampering. The pieces fell into place. Nina's polished courtroom confidence hadn't been natural. It had been scripted. More importantly, Michael continued, "I found financial irregularities in Nina's account management." "What irregularities?" "Nina had transferred funds between accounts without my consent 3 separate occasions. Total, $847,000. The number hit like ice water. For what? Legal fees, consultant payments, campaign expenses for her takeover. Bait. I looked at Steve. His expression confirmed he was hearing it too. "That's embezzlement. Technically, unauthorized corporate funds," Michael said. "But yes, criminal behavior." Steve leaned forward. "This could change the case more than change it. It could destroy her." The irony was bitter. My daughter had tried to prove my incompetence by committing her own criminal stupidity. I walked to the window, looking out at Seattle's skyline, the city where I'd built everything, where Elna had lived and died, where our family had grown and fractured. "Michael, how do we present this, carefully? We don't want to seem vindictive, just competent, and Blake's ethics violations. File a complaint with the bar, present evidence to the judge simultaneously." Steve organized documents across the conference table, financial records, employee communications, email chains, exposing Nina's deception. "Timing is everything," I said. "Next hearing is Monday. Blake will expect defense. Instead, we attack." I studied the evidence. 30 years building a company, and my daughter had tried to destroy it with 6 months of lies. Lies that were now exposed. Schedule character. Witness prep. I want them ready for aggressive cross-examination. Steve nodded. "Done. Patricia from accounting, David from engineering. They'll testify to your competence and her deceptions." Employees she promised raises to. Most are confused. Trusted her, but numbers don't add up. The late afternoon. Sun slanted through my office windows. Seattle in April could be beautiful once the rain stopped. I'll head home early. Plan our presentation tonight. Steve gathered his documents. Enough ammunition to sink a battleship. Let's hope we aim accurately. After they left, I sat alone. Silence felt different, now not empty, focused. Tomorrow, we'd remind everyone who built Hansen Tech and why it deserved better than my daughter's desperate ambitions. The courthouse felt different. Tension crackled like electricity as all parties assembled. Nina sat with Blake, confident after their prior performance. They hadn't seen what was coming. Judge Harrison called the court to order. Mr. Reed, you may present additional evidence. Michael rose slowly, deliberately Perninator who'd found wounded prey. Your Honor, the plaintiff conducted unauthorized financial operations. Blake shot up. Objection. Beyond the scope. Overruled. Continue, Mr. Reed. Michael approached the evidence table like a surgeon selecting instruments. During discovery, we found 3 unauthorized transfers from corporate accounts. Total $847,000. The number echoed through the courtroom. Nina's face went pale. These funds financed Ms. Hansen Miller's legal campaign against her father without board approval, documentation, or authorization. This constitutes embezzlement. Blake scrambled. Your Honor, these accusations are desperate attempts at discreditation. Desperate. Michael smiled coldly. These are bank records. Mathematics doesn't lie. He turned toward Nina. She looked smaller somehow. The confident executive replaced by a trapped woman, watching her world collapse. Furthermore, we have evidence of witness tampering. Blake's composure cracked. Preposterous. Ms. Blake coached her clients. Testimony phrases, emotional cues, strategic answers. We have recordings. Judge Harrison leaned forward. Recordings. Office security cameras with audio captured Blake coaching Nina inadvertently during sweeps. The judge's expression darkened. I want those reviewed immediately. When my turn came to testify, I felt calm, centered, ready. Mr. Hansen, Michael began formally. How long have you managed Hansen Tech? 30 years. Founded the company in 1995, with $50,000 borrowed against my house. Current annual revenue, $247 million. Net profit, $29.6 million. Employee count. Have you been declared incompetent by any medical professional? No. Comprehensive evaluations last month, cognitive function tests, psychological assessment, physical exam. All normal for my age. Michael presented my medical reports. Clean bills of health from 3 independent doctors. In your professional opinion, he asked, why is your daughter pursuing this legal action? I looked at Nina. She stared at her hands, avoiding my eyes. She believes I've prioritized company culture over maximum profits. She wants automation and cost-cutting measures that would eliminate jobs and reduce employee benefits. Is profit maximization always the correct strategy? No. Sustainable growth requires balancing profitability with employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, and community responsibility. How has that philosophy affected company performance? We've maintained consistent growth for 30 years. Employee retention exceeds industry standards. Customer satisfaction scores remain in the 95th percentile. Michael nodded. You've managed this company for 30 years. Know every number, every employee, every strategic decision. Your daughter wants to sacrifice long-term stability for short-term gains. Blake's cross-examination was desperate. Mr. Hansen, isn't it true you've resisted modernization? I've resisted reckless change. Technology serves business goals, not the reverse. Your daughter claims you're emotionally unstable. She's young and impatient. She confuses passion with instability, conviction with stubbornness. She says, you make decisions based on sentiment. I make decisions based on experience. 30 years of building something lasting. Blake's arrows missed their mark. Evidence overwhelmed her. Nina had overplayed her hand. When Corbin testified again, his confidence had evaporated. I may have been optimistic about projected returns. Are you still supporting Ms. Hanson-Miller's leadership bid? Long pause. I'm reconsidering my position. Blake's closing argument sounded hollow. Despite allegations, the core issue remained. Michael's response was surgical. The core issue is whether a daughter can steal her father's company through lies, embezzlement, and witness tampering. Judge Harrison's face was granite. Order. In the court, given serious allegations of financial misconduct and ethics violations, the case required additional review. Nina finally looked at me. Her eyes were elnas filled with confusion and fear. The court will reconvene in 1 week 4, final decision. As the courtroom emptied, Nina approached slowly. Dad. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to ask for bedtime stories. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, sweetheart. It did. She walked away with her ruined legal team, leaving me alone with the wreckage of our family. Victory felt hollow when it meant destroying your own daughter. All rise for the Honorable Judge Harrison. The courtroom stood as one. Shareholders, lawyers, family who'd become strangers. I felt Steve's reassuring presence as the judge entered. Weight of decision heavy in the air. Judge Harrison settled behind his bench, papers arranged with judicial precision. Please be seated. Silence was absolute. 3 months of family warfare reduced to this moment. In the matter of Hanson versus Hanson Tech Incorporated, I have reached my decision. My heart hammered. Across the aisle, Nina sat rigid, Blake's hand on her shoulder. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and documentation, the court finds no grounds for declaring Mr. Hanson incompetent to manage his business affairs. Relief washed over me like warm water, but hollow. Furthermore, evidence of financial irregularities and potential witness tampering raises serious concerns about the plaintiff's conduct. Nina's shoulders sagged. The fight had gone out of her. The case is dismissed. Mr. Hanson retains full control of Hanson Tech Corporation. Steve leaned forward. Justice has prevailed. But justice felt cold when it meant destroying your daughter. Michael shook my hand professionally. Congratulations. Way, your competency has been vindicated. Vindicated. The word tasted bitter. Across the courtroom, James Corbin approached, opportunistic as ever. Mr. Hanson, I want to express my full confidence in your continued leadership. Yesterday, he backed Nina's revolution. Today, loyalty returned. Of course, James, business, as usual. Blake gathered her papers mechanically. Her career took a blow. Nina sat motionless, staring at her hands. The courtroom emptied. Reporters scribbled notes. Shareholders whispered strategies. Normal lives resumed, but I couldn't move. Victory should feel better. Steve touched my arm. You did what you had to do, did I? Or did I just prove Nina right about my priorities? I had protected what we built, preserved the company and my reputation, but at the cost of my relationship with my daughter. Nina stood slowly, gathering her purse. Aaron waited by the doors, relief evident. She looked small, defeated. I made a decision that surprised even me. Nina, I called. She turned, eyes red-rimmed, but dry. Dad, this doesn't have to be the end of our story. Something flickered in her expression. Hope, fear. I lost everything. No, you only lost a battle, not the war with life. Steve watched us carefully. Michael pretended to organize papers while listening. Can we talk privately? Nina glanced at Aaron. He nodded encouragingly. Not here, she said quietly. Coffee, somewhere neutral. I need time to process this. Of course, I stepped closer. You're still my daughter. You're still brilliant. You're still capable of great things. Her composure cracked slightly, even after everything I'd done, especially after everything you did. It took courage to challenge me, even if the method was wrong. She looked at me with illness, confused, hurt, but seeing something. New, I'll call you next week. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. As she walked away with Aaron, I felt something unexpected. Not victory, not vindication, hope. The company was mine. The family could still be saved. And maybe, just maybe, we could build something better together. 10 days of waiting led me to this bench overlooking Lake Union. The water sparkled in late afternoon sun. Seattle's skyline rising behind the trees like quiet promises. I arrived early, needing time to prepare. This conversation would determine whether we had a future or just a legal past. Nina appeared at 3:15, walking slowly across the grass. Jeans, simple sweater, no business armor, no defensive walls. Just my daughter. Dad, she said, sitting beside me with careful distance. Thank you for coming. I've been thinking about what you said at the courthouse. The lake lapped gently at the shore. Joggers passed. Normal life continued while we tried to rebuild ours. Dad, I never felt like you were proud of me. The words hit like physical blows. Every achievement invisible, every success less important than the next board meeting. I turned to face her fully. I was always proud of you. I just didn't know how to show it. Mom tried to tell you. She said, I needed words, not just opportunities. Elena's voice echoed across the years. She needs your attention more than the company does. Your mother was wiser than I gave her credit for. I wanted to prove I was worthy of your love. My love doesn't need proof. She laughed bitterly. Then why did it feel so conditional? Why did every conversation become about work? Why was the company always more important? I stared at the water, watching sailboats drift toward the harbor. How do you explain 30 years of misguided priorities? I built Hanson for you, for our family's future. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrifice I thought I was providing security. But you were also providing distance. Yes, you were. The admission felt like releasing a held breath. I'd confused providing with parenting, success with love. Nina's eyes filled. She needed her father, not a benefactor, and she needed to learn the difference. Silence stretched, not uncomfortable, but honest. When I filed that lawsuit, I wasn't just fighting for the company, I was fighting for recognition, validation that I mattered to you. You've always mattered. I just showed it poorly. She wiped her eyes. I nearly destroyed everything. No, you nearly saved us. How can you say that? I embezzled money. I lied to shareholders. I tried to have you declared incompetent. You forced honesty. You made us confront what was broken. The lake reflected afternoon clouds. Seattle in late spring felt full of possibility. What happens now? She asked. That depends. Do you still want to modernize the company? Would you trust me with that? She stared. Are you ready to trust me with part of the company? I'm ready to trust you with the future of the company. Her breath caught, meaning co-CEOs, my innovation, her experience, partnership instead of war. You do that after everything. Because of everything. You were right about modernization. I was right about culture. Together, we could build something Elena would be proud of. Nina stood, pacing to the water's edge. I watched her process the proposal, seeing Elena's thoughtfulness in her movements. Full partnership, equal authority, shared responsibility, father-daughter, leadership team. She turned back. What about the board? Steve's already supportive. Shareholders want stability and growth. We can provide both. And the employees. They'll respect the Hanson name. Both of us. She walked back, sitting closer this time. I have conditions. Name them. Full transparency. No decisions. Without consultation. Modern technology implementation. Employee profit-sharing program. Agreed. My conditions. Maintain company culture. Gradual changes. Not revolutionary. Family time. Protected weekly dinners. No business talk during Mia's bedtime stories. Elena's foundation continues. Nina smiled for the first time in months. Deal? I extended my hand. Partners? She shook it firmly. Partners. Then she surprised me by leaning forward, hugging me tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. I always have. We held each other by Lake Union as the afternoon faded. Father and daughter becoming something new. Business partners, family, future. The kitchen smelled like Elena's favorite recipe. Nina moved between stove and counter with practiced efficiency, but tonight felt different. Celebration was in every gesture. Dad, I prepared your favorite dish. I arrived carrying a wrapped package and my grandfather's smile. Something smells like your mother's cooking. Same recipe, same love. The table was set formally, warmly. Candles, fine china attention, reserved for special occasions. Mia bounded in, wearing a paint-stained dress. Grandpa, Mia, Grandpa brought you something special. She tore through the wrapping with 4-year-old enthusiasm, a miniature business suit for when she's ready to run Hanson. Will I be the boss someday, sweetheart? Someday you might be? Aaron emerged from his office, architectural plans tucked under his arm. I'm glad we're one family. Again, so am I. I meant it completely. Dinner conversation flowed naturally. Mia chattered about preschool. Aaron discussed his latest project, a children's museum downtown. Nina shared preliminary plans for Hanson Tech's modernization, gradual implementation, respecting staff while improving efficiency, the best of both worlds. After dessert, Nina produced a manila folder, ready to make this official. The partnership agreement. Elegant, simple, shared authority, complementary responsibilities, dispute resolution protocols, everything two stubborn business leaders needed to work together. Mia, are you not sad anymore? I looked down at my granddaughter. No, sweetheart, Grandpa is happy because Mommy and Grandpa are friends again, because we're family again. I signed the documents with steady hands. Nina followed, her signature bold, confident. Aaron produced champagne. I thought we might celebrate. Perfect timing. We stood in the dining room, glasses raised. 4 generations of family past, present, and future, united again. To Hanson Tech's new future, Nina declared. 2 family partnerships, I added. To not fighting anymore, Mia contributed. Solemnly, we laughed, clinking glasses carefully to include her apple juice. Aaron raised his glass higher. To Alina, who would have loved seeing this moment. To Alina, we echoed. I felt her presence in the room, Nina's smile, and Mia's laughter, and the possibility of healing. The champagne tasted like hope. What happens Monday? Mia asked. Monday, Mommy and Grandpa go to work together, Nina explained. Like a team, exactly like a team. I picked up Mia, spinning her gently. The best team in Seattle, outside. Summer was beginning, long days, warm nights, new possibilities. Inside we were beginning too. Not the same family we'd been before the war, but something better. Something honest. As evening deepened, we moved to the living room. Mia showed me her latest drawings. Nina and Aaron planned next week's schedule. Simple domestic moments. Felt profound after months of legal warfare. At 8:30, I prepared to leave, arms full of Mia's artwork, heart full of possibility. See you Monday, partner, Nina said. See you Monday, daughter. The drive home took me through Seattle's familiar streets, past Hanson Tower, past the courthouse where we'd fought, past Pike Place Market, where truth had first emerged, all of it leading to tomorrow, toward partnership, toward family, toward the future Alina had always envisioned for us. I parked in my Capitol Hill driveway, and sat for a moment, looking at Mia's drawings. Stick figures labeled Grandpa and Mommy, working together at big desks. A 4-year-old's vision of harmony. Perfect business plan. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left